Hey, how you going everyone? My name is Bryn Smyth and I'd like to welcome you to another video of the Bryn Smyth Music Workshop. Now, today I'm going to be talking specifically about envelope filters. The envelope filter was the very first stomp box I ever bought, and it's been one of my favorite, if not the favorite effect that I've used specifically on bass guitar anyway. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today. So what is an envelope filter? Without getting into scientific terms or anything like that, it's basically, you know, you've got your dry bass, which is going to sound like, you know, dum 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 dum. Otherwise, the envelope filter is going to make it sound like a wop 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 wop. Pretty bad impression, I know, but you'll hear it on bass and you'll understand what I'm talking about that way. So I'll just give you, that's what that does anyway. So it gives you that kind of really watery, funky sort of sound. Obviously really good for funk music, but you can use it in a couple of other aspects as well, and add it to like a distortion or just stuff like that, and it just sounds fantastic. So what I'll do, I'll let you have a look at it for a second. Let's just get this off and get this going again. Now, there we go. So this is the one that I have at the moment. This is the DOD FX25B envelope filter. So very simple, very simple pedal, very simple design. Obviously, stomp there, and it's only got 3 knobs. You don't need much more than that. So this one, what this has is a blend, which is basically mixes in the dry signal with the effect itself. Sensitivity, which basically says how light or how heavy you need to play in order for the effect to actually kick in and actually work. And range. Now, what this range does is it, how to explain it? It gives you this determines the width of the effect of how long it takes for it to go back to its dry signal. So obviously, the lower the range is going to sound like a wow wow. Mind you, if you go to a higher range, it's going to sound like a wow, wow sort of thing. So, once again, bad impression, but I'll play around with it later and you can hear it on bass. So, yeah, there's really not much else you really need for an envelope filter, although there are a couple of other ones which have more knobs and variations and tonal controls, and by all means, they're cool, but, you know, sometimes they're just not that necessary, but it all depends on taste. So that's pretty cool, those ones there, alright? So what I'll do, hook this back on. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to play a little bit for you of this envelope filter, just so you get to see how it sounds. There we go. I've been kicking out this cord again. Okay, sorry about that, I lost power on my effect board. I'm running a lot of stuff at the moment. Still, anyway, this is basically how it sounds. So I've got my dry signal on the bass, so this is going to go. Now, I'll kick on the envelope filter now, but the envelope filter, I've got everything pointing at 12 o'clock, so everything's straight up. You can't dial in one knob at a time, because it just doesn't work like that. So this is how it's supposed to sound, just with everything at 12. So it actually sounds pretty good, everything at 12 anyway, but, you know, obviously a couple of tweaks here and there, it sounds even better. So what I'll do, the blend knob determines how much dry signal you want to put in. So if we put the blend down at about 9 o'clock, so counterclockwise, this is how it's going to sound. So you can probably tell subtly there's a bit more of the dry signal in there. And what I'll do, I'll turn the blend to about 3 o'clock, so it's turning clockwise now, and this is how it sounds. So yeah, a lot less dry signal in that one. So with the sensitivity, I've turned it down to 9 o'clock, And this is how it's going to sound. So very, very hard to hear, especially when you don't have the, you know, with the sensitivity low. You really need to play hard for that one, right? But even then, you know, it's not coming out right. So then we'll put the sensitivity up to about 3 o'clock, and this is how this is going to sound. So very, very much effect on that one. So I'll fix the range now. The range, as I mentioned before, the lower the range, the quicker the sound, or the lower the less of the resonance it has to go back to its normal state. Ugh, hard to explain, but hear me out. Just hear this. And then I'll turn the range up to 3 o'clock, and this is how it's going to sound. So yeah, you can hear that there's a lot more resonance, a lot more effect in that, a lot more of the Q, as they say, that comes out of the range there. So what I'll do now, I'm going to dial in my settings, which aren't really that different from nominal settings. The blend I've put to about maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock. Sensitivity I mix between like noon, like 12 o'clock to maybe 1:30, somewhere around there, depending on how heavy or how light I want to play. And the range I put to about 1:30 to 2 o'clock, just to give it a little bit extra than normal. So this is how it's going to sound. So yeah, that's the setting I like to use. That's my particular envelope sounds. Now, when it comes to playing these envelope filters, I see a lot of guitarists and maybe some bass players, not many, but mostly guitarists anyway, they like to turn the sensitivity like all the way up, and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are you doing? Seriously, that's not the way to go about it. What I mean by that is, like, my reasoning behind that is, with that sensitivity, if you turn it all the way up, you're going to lose control over the sound itself. Everything's just going to sound that one sort of really, really affected sort of stuff. And it's probably their taste, you know, that's fine, but it's not my way of playing anyway. What I suggest is usually turning the sensitivity down. Like I said, noon to about, like the setting I have, maybe 1 o'clock, is a good way to go, because you can actually control, just by using your right hand, how much of the effect you want to put into your playing. Simple as that. So what I mean by that is that, depending on where you play as well, so let me kick this down a bit. So depending on where you play on the guitar or bass, if you play, you know, if you play closer to the bridge, it's going to sound. You play around the middle of the body, like usually close to the neck pickup. And then if you play to the neck, so each place has a different sound that you want to use. Now I find the most effective for an envelope filter is actually at the bridge, mainly because here the strings are more taut, so you can actually choose how much strength you want to actually use what effect you want. So what I mean by that is, like, you know, what I'll do is I'll play softly, then I'll play hard, and I'll mix between the two. So softly. Hard. So basically sounds kind of like that. So yeah, that's what I like to use for the envelope filters. Now, I don't expect, if you're going to go buy an envelope filter, I don't expect you to go out and buy a DOD just because I've got it, or, just because, like, Flea's got it, or anyone else. But have a play around with whatever you can. The ones that I've checked out and I've heard and I've looked around with are the Electro Harmonics Qtron, which was really, really cool. And usually quite affordable as well, especially to go with the mini Qtron. Next, the other one that you might want to try out is the MXR M87 envelope filter, the bass filter. That's really supposed to be really good quality, that one. The Aguilar Filter Twin, which is surprisingly actually quite good as well. I haven't tried out a Boss Auto Wah yet, and I usually... with a lot of Boss pedals, I don't usually recommend them, mainly because I don't personally like the way they're being made anymore. Everything just sounds too digital. They're losing their analog stuff, the analog sound sort of thing. So yeah, generally don't usually suggest it. Mind you, I haven't heard it, so I really can't say much for sure. If you really wanted to, and if you're looking for something that's more like a synth than an envelope filter, I suggest the Digitech Bass Synth Wah. It's got a fair few settings on it, and you can get the envelope filter sound on it as well. But obviously, like I said, it's more of a wah. More of a synth than an envelope filter. But other than that, if you want to get something with a lot more manual control, if you don't want that auto wah, I would suggest getting the like what I've got, the Dunlop 105Q. So basically, just a foot pedal that you can just push down yourself. It works the exact same way as an envelope filter, except you're doing it yourself. So that's how all that works. And yeah, I thank you for watching. And if you're gonna get an envelope filter, have fun, be funky, and yeah, just play around with it and have fun. Cool.